Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin and I love all things beauty, makeup, skincare related. Today I'm going to be duping the vibes of the Beauty Bay Reckless Romance eyeshadow palette. So I have it pulled up in front of me. It's a lot of burgundies, purplies. It does have a black in there, but it definitely is leaning on the more pink and burgundy side of things. I've never tried anything from Beauty Bay, so I don't know what the formula or anything is like, but from some videos that I've watched of people using it, it seems to be a pretty decent quality for the price. And I remember last year, towards the end of last year, maybe it was around Black Friday or just like the holidays in general, they were having some sales on their eyeshadow palettes. And I remember I put a bunch into a cart online, and then I just never checked out. I really didn't need any eyeshadow palettes at the time, but I was pretty interested in trying the brand. So who knows, maybe one day I will try something from Beauty Bay, but today I'm just going to dupe the vibes of the Reckless Romance palette and have it suffice. I'm sure I have plenty of shades that are quite similar to what the palette is. And actually, when I first saw the palette, there were a few palettes in my collection that sort of came to mind as being kind of similar. So the first one is the Unearthed Dreamer palette. This has, because the Reckless Romance palette does have a little bit of cooler, gray tones, and that sort of reminded me of these. There's a pretty dark metallic that's kind of charcoaled, but it could be leaning kind of blue, so that's that. And then of course the pinks that it has going on, and also the Reckless Romance seems to have a pretty, it's like a champagne color, but it's a little bit deepened, and that kind of reminded me of the Float shade. Another palette that I thought of is this Violette Vespertine from Viseart. This came in my Beautylish Lucky Bag this year, and this is definitely all cool tones compared to the Reckless Romance, and it's leaning more in the purple realm of things and doesn't really have much of the pink or burgundy going on, but I still thought of this when I saw that. I also thought of the Sydney Grace Enduring Love palette. So this one definitely has the pinks, both matte and metallic. It's got a pretty deep blue metallic. It's got some of the grays in there, and it looks like a couple of the more shiny shimmers in the Reckless Romance are leaning on the lighter taupe end of things. So the shades John and Devotion seem like they're pretty similar in that way. And then the very first thing that I thought of actually is the Natasha Denona Lila palette. It's got the mauve, it has more purple pinks, it's got a more truer pink, and it also has these more goldeny amber type shades. So I think this also kind of just fits the vibes of the Reckless Romance palette. So I have all of those palettes to go to lean back on if I can't find anything in my singles, because all of those eyeshadow palettes, the pans are magnetic. I can take them out and use them, but I want to try to look in my singles collection first to see if I can pull things to fit the vibes. I'm pretty sure that I will have plenty to go on, but in case there's something in particular that I can't quite find, then I've got those other palettes to go on. So the Reckless Romance palette is a 20 pan palette, and the swatches that they have online, there aren't 20, they didn't swatch all of the shades on the arm, which I think is kind of weird. So I'll mostly be, I think, just looking at the picture of the palette itself, like the pans, and sort of going based off that. I don't think I'm going to pull 20 shades. I'll probably just do like an edited version of that, because as I'm looking at it, like there's a few shades that are pretty similar. Like there's 2 matte burgundies, there's 2 matte grays that it looks like, 2 matte mauves, and I'm sure they're all like similar enough that like I don't think that you would really need all of those. So because I'm not going to do a full 20, I think I'm going to want it to fit in here, which is currently housing a custom palette. This is the eyeshadow palette that I made as my version of the Twilight palette. So before we start, I'm going to put this away, and I also had a custom palette of lethal shades that I had put together, and I'm also going to put this away as well because it does have like a taupey and a burgundy and this pink, and I just haven't really been reaching for this in the last little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and put these away as well. Okay, I'm going to start with the Lethal Cosmetic shades because I kind of feel like that I'm going to be able to get all of the mattes just using the Lethal shades, and I think I'll probably be able to get a couple of the shimmers, but then once I get all of the mattes, I'll go to some of my other singles for the shimmers. Okay, so it's looking like the top left shade called number 1. It looks like it's a matte, and it's a pretty cream matte, but leaning on the yellow side. So I actually think that this matte right here is a pretty good match for it, and it's the shade Ephemeral. Okay, and then the shades Soulmate and Fling are 2 that look pretty similar to me, and it's basically just a mauve. So I'm gonna go with this shade right here, which is Imago. Okay, the shades Backstage and Last Night are similar enough to me. They're basically just grays, but it's actually looking like they're on the cooler tone of gray. And so this shade right here looks a little bit light and maybe not as, like it's leaning a little bit more taupe than gray, but I'm just duping the vibes. I'm not duping it exactly, and I would prefer a gray like this. There's the shades Love Song, Paparazzi. I guess just Love Song and Paparazzi are pretty similar, and they're a deeper burgundy shade. And I have basically all 4 of these that could fit it. I'm going to go with this shade right here, which is leaning a little bit more, I think, towards what Paparazzi is, and it's the shade Swarm. Love Song might actually be kind of brown. It's hard to say. I wish that they would, so on the image of the swatches on the arm, so not only did they not swatch all of the shades, but they also didn't label which shades there were, which is kind of frustrating. I'll stick with, I think, Love Song being more of a burgundy, not a brown. And so there's 2 shades, Tattoo and Leather. It's really hard to tell if there's a difference at all in them, but basically it's just black. So I've got the shade Transmutation, and I think that pretty much covers the mattes. I guess I'll throw this shade. It's the shade Space Duster, but it's from the Teresa is Lethal palette. So this can sort of help cover the more like blue grayness of those two grays that other shade that I picked doesn't quite have. But I think that's probably going to be it for the mattes. I don't really have anything that's as pinked purple that the shade Front Row is giving, but maybe I'll just throw this shade in, which is Unity, just to have something that's more giving more purple rather than the burgundies that I've already chosen. Okay, so let's move on to shimmers. There's basically, two pink shimmer looking things in the shades Muse and Rockstar. And then After Party is a lighter pink. Mini Dress kind of looks straight up silver. Girlfriend is sort of a pinky champagne. Encore is more of like a rose shimmer. And then Fishnets, that kind of just looks like a matte with glitter in it. Oh, or maybe that's the swatched, where it's like the charcoal swatch on the arm, and maybe there's like pink and purple glitter in it. Okay, I'll come back to the lethal shimmers if I can't find any other shimmers from my Clionadh round shades. I think this shade, which is Cinnabar from Clionadh, it's a duochrome, but it's like pinky purple, and I think that goes really well. This shade, which is Prophecy, it's also a duochrome. It's leaning like rose gold. And then Prosecco, I think, covers that. It's the shade VIP. It looks pretty orange in the pan, but I think it's kind of just a darkened champagne. Okay, going with something a little bit more silvery based is the shade Centaur. It's more, I guess it's kind of like taupey. This shade Darkside, this like kind of fits that fishnet shade. So it's the darkened shimmer. It just doesn't quite have like pink and purple glitters in it, but I think it gets the darkness of that shade. Okay, so now I kind of need like a straight up silver, but I guess I'll just use this shade. It's not really silver, but it's light enough. It's called Light Chaser. It's just like a really light taupe that, I guess if you like squint a little bit, it could be silver. Okay, so currently I have 13 shades pulled. So just to make it an even number, I'm actually going to go ahead and pull this Shroud Cosmetics shade. It's called Enchantress, and it's from the Arcana palette, and it's like a really deep burgundy shimmer. So I think that'll help round out the shimmers that I've already chosen. I think 14 shades is a pretty good edit of the palette because, again, looking at the picture, there's some mattes that, like a couple sets of mattes look so similar that I don't think that they're really needed. Okay, so here are my chosen shades. Let's arrange them and then I'll swatch them. Okay, now for some reason I didn't remember that this one just holds 15 the best, so I guess I need to go pick another shade and because shapes and stuff, it needs to be a circle pan. So I went and pulled Haze of the Moon from Terra Cosmetics, and it's pretty champagne looking, but it is actually a little bit more on the silver side, and I think it has maybe some multicolored glitters in it, or maybe that's just what it looks like in the pan, but it is a pretty like super shiny silvery champagne-y shade, so I think it fits pretty well. Here is my version of the Reckless Romance palette, and I will swatch it. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it inspired you to go into your own collection and see what you already have, in case there's a new eyeshadow palette out that you're maybe eyeing. But if you're trying to not buy as much, or if you're on a no buy, I just encourage you to look into your collection and see what you already have. I mean, I pulled all of these shades. Are they exactly like the Reckless Romance palette? No, but I think it would come pretty similar to what you would actually get in an eye look. I'm actually pretty pleased with how it turned out, and I'm kind of excited to use this. I very much am into burgundies and purples on the eye, so shades like this are like right up my alley. Let me know in the comments, have you tried anything from Beauty Bay? Did you pick up the Reckless Romance palette? And if you're new here and you like stuff like this, subscribe before you go. I put together custom eyeshadow palettes a lot. I have been branching more into indie eyeshadow palettes, so I have like purchased quite a few in the last little bit, but I also want to remember to use stuff that I already own and items that I already have in my collection. So I do shop my stashes to fill my everyday makeup drawers, and I've done quite a few declutters, and there will probably be some more declutters coming up soon, so stay tuned for that if you're interested, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!